Number 9, what value is angle A? So for this one, we're going to have to use law of cosines. Only about 44% of you guys got this right, and an astounding 15% didn't even put an answer at all. It just left it blank, even though it's multiple choice and you can guess and potentially get it right. So it's a little disappointing. This is the meat of the whole chapter. So we really want to make sure that we have this down, the law of sines and how we're going to solve for those missing pieces. So in this case, we have our triangle ABC. We know 2 of the sides and we know 1 of the angles. But that angle is opposite one of the sides. So that means we're allowed to use the law of sines because we can set up that ratio. So recall that the law of sines says that the sine of an angle, in this case I'm going to do angle B, over the side opposite, which is little b, is equal to the sine of another angle, which I'll put as A, over the opposite side, which I'll put little a. Okay, so that means if this is big A, that means this side is little a, right? If this is big B, this side is little b. So we know little a, we know little b, we know big B. We're going to solve for angle A. So we're going to try and figure this one out. So if we know what big B is, I can plug that in right here. I know that big B is 100, so the sine of 100. I know what little b is. I know that that's 8 over 8. And I know what little a is. It's 3. Great. Now all I have to do, now it's just an algebra problem. I just have to solve for a. So how am I going to solve for a? Well, I need to get everything that I'm doing to a away from it here on this right side of the equation. So what am I doing to a? Well, I'm taking the sine of angle a, and then I'm taking that and I'm dividing it by 3. So I'm going to go in opposite order, and then I'm going to do the opposite function of each one of those. So what's the opposite of dividing by 3? Well, it's multiplying by 3. So I multiply both sides by 3. Let me use blue for this. Times 3 times 3. That's an ugly 3. These cancel. Bam. And I'm left with the sine of angle A equals 3 times the sine of 100 over 8. And recall, when we multiply a fraction by a number, we don't multiply the top and the bottom by that number. That wouldn't do anything at all. So what we want to do is we want to multiply the 3 by the top. So I'm just going to make it abundantly clear that the 3 is being multiplied by this numerator here. And then we're just left with the sine of angle A. I guess I'll rewrite this whole thing and write again. So the sine of angle A is equal to 3 times the sine of 100. Take that whole thing divided by 8. Okay, we're close. Now I just need to get rid of this sine function. And remember, as long as it's acute, I'm allowed to take the inverse sine. So I'll take the inverse sine on both sides. Boop, boop. That means I have to take the inverse sine of this entire thing. These cancel each other out. And I'm left with angle A is equal to this thing, the inverse sine of 3 times the sine of 100 divided by 8. So the inverse sine of 3 times the sine of 100 divided by 8. Let's calculate. So the inverse sine of 3 times did I delete this up? 3 times the, I don't want inverse, sine of 100 divided by 8. When I multiply and I divide things, the order doesn't matter. I could do sine of 100 divided by 8, and then times 3, or 3 times the sine of 100, and then take that and divide it by 8. The order doesn't matter here, as long as I'm doing a single division. And then it spits out 21.67 degrees. Well, is that one of our answers? 21.67, yes. And it makes sense. Cool.